Hey guys, can everybody hear me? Hey, everybody that is on the dais, our board members and our guests, make sure that you're on the microphones tight. These microphones do not pick up like the board microphones do in our other locations, so please make sure you're in them well. Thank you.
Testing.
Oh, I was singing.
Test, test.
Just killed a man, put a gun against his head.
Check, 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 check. All right, good evening, everybody. So great to see you all. Before we get started, I do want to go over a couple housekeeping items here. First and foremost, the restrooms are down the hallway on the left, so please feel free. We also have snacks and beverages in the back there. Please continue to help yourself. And again, it is so great to see each and every one of you here. I am happy to say that this is the first ever legislative summit held here in Frederick County. So let's give us a round of applause for that. This is fantastic. We're looking forward to our conversations this evening. I'm going to go over the agenda as well as some items before I hand it off to my team. But before we do that, I want to acknowledge and recognize our esteemed and amazing guests. First is Delegate Dolores Oates. Thank you so much for being here. We also have our other delegate, Mr. Bill Wiley. Thank you so much for being here. Very much appreciated. And last but not least, Senator Timmy French. Thank you again so much for being here, all three of you. This is very, very appreciative. So we have gone over a welcoming, and I want to just start by saying we are very appreciative of you taking time out of your busy schedules to speak with us about the amazing things that are happening here in Frederick County Public Schools, as well as some things that we've identified that we want to talk through with hopefully making some adjustments in the best interest of our kids. So we met a month ago as a school board and my team to talk about some legislative priorities that we would like to mention to you all, have a conversation, and hopefully you consider taking to the General Assembly with supporting us in making some of these changes. And then we will have open discussion throughout this conversation, which brings me to my next point before we get started. We are really big on not just speaking at people. So we don't want to wait until just the end of the presentation. So we will take intentional pauses throughout. So if there's any questions from the school board or from you all, we want to be able to entertain those questions in the beginning as we go throughout the presentation. And then, of course, at the end, if there's anything that we want to talk about culminating, we can do at that time. Okay? Just want to make sure that we make that noted as well. So as I mentioned to you, there are going to be some legislative priorities that we are going to mention to you, which we're going to dive into here in a second. But if there are no legislative priorities that you take back with you, or there's some reason why we can't address these at the General Assembly, we are just very, very fortunate and appreciative of you just coming out and collaborating with us. And if anything is taken away from this, is just developing that relationship with you all, the school board, myself, and my team, so that we can continue these open conversations and dialogues and continue to do what's best for our students, because in the end, that is the future of our community and our society, is that investment into our students and making sure we're doing what's best for all of our kids in regards to what's in store for our future. So again, we thank you very much for this opportunity to share these items with you as we continue to collaborate and work together. So we have high expectations for our students. And in order to uphold those high expectations, we have to have good resources for them. We have to have high quality educational experiences for our students. And we also have to make sure that we have high quality staff. And in order to meet all of those standards in regards to meeting those high quality needs of our students, we have to invest in that. And there are dollars that we have to spend, and we all acknowledge that fact. We want to be good stewards of our dollar, but we want to make sure that we are spending that money wisely and that we are funneling and directing those dollars to, again, do what's best for our students. In addition, we want to make sure that we have safe buildings. We want to make sure that we have spaces that are conducive for the learning of our students, and we want to make sure that we are being able to find the money to support these buildings, as well as to add on, renovate as we continue to grow and as we continue to take care of our current assets, because we have some buildings, you're in one right now, that are over 70 years old, and that costs money to maintain and it costs money to sustain. Another aspect that we're asking for your support on is helping us with the unfunded mandates that come out from VDOE. We are appreciative of a lot of the supports and resources that they provide and the initiatives, but a lot of times there's not funding that's associated with that. And I'll give you a prime example of the new accreditation system that is coming out. It'll be fully implemented for next year. Not sure if you've seen what that's going to look like. And there are a lot of aspects of that we like. And we are all in agreement and acknowledge that we have a lot of great things that are happening, but there's a lot of work that we still need to do, and there's some improvements that we need to work on. Well, there are some aspects of that new accreditation system that's going to cost more money. And one of those is implementing the 3E program that is going to dive deeper into middle school, which is enrollment, enlistment, and employment. And those things are great. Those are the tracks that we want to have for our students. We want to help support our students that next step after post-high school, but we're going to have to invest in certifying teachers at the middle school level, looking into additional programs to help support our students obtain those goals. So we have some recommendations in this presentation that we would like for you to take into consideration, but there are going to be some other things that come out of this new accountability system that we are going to need help supporting, so that, again, we can meet those needs. We can also establish a process in order to get to those high expectations for our students so they can meet those goals, but we also want to make sure that we have those appropriate revenue streams to be able to support that. So the legislative priorities, we had a long conversation as a school board, as with my team, with our staff, in regards to some legislative priorities that we would like to present to you this evening, where we can have an open dialogue and conversation about. And again, we really appreciate the time for us to collaborate and work through these things. And maybe there's some pieces that we can be educated on as well from you all, because we know that there are some of these that are still being considered at the General Assembly, and we want to be able to provide additional information as to what will help get it over that hump of being processed and approved, but we just want to make sure that we're having that collaboration and working together through these items. So the first is the famous COCA line, and I'm sure you guys hear a lot about that, and we're going to dive into what that is, what recommendations we have as we navigate that, but that is one piece that we definitely are recommending we see some sort of adjustments on, but that is the first item that we want to take a look at and work through. The next is eliminating the support position caps. And those caps, I know that the General Assembly has been working on that, and they've made some adjustments to it, but as our needs continue to climb, those caps continue to impact us on a daily level. And we want to make sure that we are supporting that. We want to make sure that if we can get some additional dollars and funding from the state to support us in that, we want to be able to work through those pieces. And again, we'll dive into that here in a second. Next is this is what I was talking about earlier, is improving those post-secondary opportunities for our students. We want to be able to provide them with real-life opportunities, real-life application of skills, so that we can make that learning about that particular field a reality, so that when they graduate high school, they're able to dive into that field, they can enlist in the military, or they can go to college to achieve their goals for that next step. Another piece is to support our assets, to support our buildings, to support the growth, to support our renovations of our buildings. And that's another thing we really want to talk through a little bit more. I know a lot of my colleagues across the Commonwealth are experiencing the same issues in regards to revenue streams to support not only future renovation and growth, but their current buildings, because it costs a lot of money to keep up with the maintaining of these buildings, because they're used on a daily basis, even over on the weekends. So we want to make sure that we're able to fund that and maintain those buildings, so we're creating those safe and conducive learning spaces for our students. The last item, which we're very appreciative from our school board who added this item on, is we are looking for additional support and revenue streams for safety and security for our students. We say it and we want to act it in regards to safety is our #1 priority for our students, for our staff, and for our community. And we are very lucky to have the relationship that we have with our local sheriff's office, and we have a lot of SROs in our schools, but there are some of those SROs that are funded through grants, and if those aren't funded locally, those SROs go away. So we want to talk about what some additional support might look like for those staff, as well as some other revenue streams in regards to safety and security of our students. For example, I don't know if you've heard, but we are implementing weapons detections in our schools, which has been very appreciative. We have a great team that has accessed grant dollars to fund these weapons detections, but as we continue to expand, that's going to cost more money. And there's other features and aspects of our schools that we're working on to make more safe, and that costs money as well, so we're working on what that revenue stream is going to look like to maintain that as we continue to respond to the struggles that we deal with today in regards to safety. So I'm going to stop there before I hand it off to my esteemed colleague, Mrs. Patty Camry, who's going to dive into the COCA line. Any initial questions, comments, reactions from you all or from the school board? Okay, so now I'm going to hand it off to Mrs. Patty Camry, and we will go from there. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, I consider myself tall, but not that tall, right? And by the way, I'm just a little bit disappointed because I saw over here an exercise bike and I wanted to present from there, but Dr. Hummer wouldn't let me. Because I thought, wouldn't that be nice for me to sit over there and pedal as I present these slides to you? But regardless, maybe I'll get on it when Katie or someone else is up here. So I want to talk about the cost of competing adjustment. As you know, that's that imaginary line that is drawn for Northern Virginia, and it was created to help them become more competitive with the Baltimore, Maryland area and the Washington, D.C. area. So as you know, the top 9, the big 9, who we also compete with, some of those, are listed there for you: Alexandria, Arlington, Fairfax, Fairfax City, Falls Church, Loudon, Manassas, Manassas Park, and Prince William. Of course, they get 100% of that COCA. We are in the 25% group. So those 9 are listed there as well: Clark, Culpeper, Fauquier, Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, Stafford, Warren, and Winchester. So with that 25% that we received, that equates to about $1.3 million for us. For Loudon, it's about $16 million. And so why is that a concern for us? Is because last year we lost 31%. The 31% of the people who left us went to Loudon. So here what we want to do is kind of show you why Loudon is a big competitor for us. If you look at this, we are showing you here the 5 benchmarks. We got the starting salary, 10-year, 20, and 30-year salary. But what's also a benchmark to look at is Loudon has a 197-day contract. Our teachers are on a longer contract with 200 days. But at the bottom there, you'll see that difference in red. So when we're out competing to try to attract new teachers, and Loudon is right beside us, you can see that a young person would look at that $6,000 difference. Because for some of our employees, it's only a 35-minute drive from here to Loudon, so they can still live in Frederick County. But when you get higher up in the years, like year 20 or even 30, those teachers for us, we have already invested in their training in giving them the tools, the professional learning to make them good teachers, and then they're going over the mountain and taking that experience with them. So that's why that's a big concern for us. Also, people in that 20-year benchmark range, those are the teachers who have kids going to college or thinking about retiring. So therefore, they're going to look, where's their dollar, where can you get more for their bang for their buck as far as earnings, and so therefore they look at going to Loudoun. And here's the other reason it's pretty competitive for us. Virginia retirement system is based on your 3 highest consecutive years. So, Dolores, thank you, because I see that you already know this, and this is great. So when you look at a teacher, for us, is sitting here and they're looking. Now this slide shows this is just saying this is FY25 wages, not putting in any kind of a raise. So this is flat out as if no raises were for us or Loudoun. You can see there that if a teacher goes from here to go work in Loudoun, not only would they have earned $65,000 more by going there, but it impacts their VRS because the average 3 would be those last 3 years of their salary. So therefore, they're giving up $930 a month for the rest of their life while they're in VRS. So therefore, that's the double whammy for us, that we lose teachers because teachers are looking at that as well. And I'll pause just a second just to see if you have any questions. Otherwise, the big ask is next. We would love to be at the 100%. That's all I ask. We ask for the moon, maybe you'll give us a star, but we would love to be in that cocoa line. Anyway, that's all I have. Any questions? Then I'll turn it over to Katie, who's up here. She's our executive director of, I'm the executive director of finance, sorry. Here's our, of human resources.
But I'm cheating.
There you
Okay,
go.
thank you. Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Katie Franklin, Executive Director of Human Resources. As Patty just said, like a good lifelong student and learner, I want to make sure that I properly cite my sources of the Commonwealth Institute and Virginia PTA in doing the research that I've done, excuse me, to prepare for our conversation tonight. So with that said, I would offer the following as to why eliminating support position caps is in the best interest of our students and kids. Support staff are essential in meeting the academic, social, and emotional needs of students in and out of the classroom, and they maintain school safety, keep school facilities functional, aid teachers, and promote healthy learning environments. Adequately staffing these positions leads to better academic and life outcomes for students and helps build a system of public education that works for all. Yet since 2008-2009 school year, there has been a profound drop-off in state investment for support staff positions. This is because in 2009, during the Great Recession, lawmakers added language to the budget, creating a cap on support staff funding, cutting hundreds of millions in state funding for support staff. Lifting the support cap will help to alleviate the challenges that schools face and provide students with the resources necessary for a quality education. The students that feel these impacts most are those who may not have access to needed supports, such as counseling, career development, and mental health services outside of the school. Support positions are especially vital for addressing and improving challenges that students from low-income families and students of color face in particular, such as chronic absenteeism, high rates of suspension and expulsions, and overall school climate. Additionally, in years when the state offers a pay raise, state dollars are only provided for the number of support positions covered by the support cap, not the number of actual staff. Local governments are left to choose whether to provide for part or all of the raise, if it can at all, or find other sources of revenue to fund a raise. Support staff balance teacher workload, provide services that impact academic success, and ensure a safe learning environment. In summary, the cap on funding support staff reduces overall basic aid, which limits school division flexibility to meet instructional and operational needs. So I'll pause for any questions. It was just a little background and explanation on how we got to where we are. So you'll see on this slide where we've been since 2023. The cap still exists, and these are some of our numbers. It absolutely creates more burden on our teachers. here's where we are currently. So these are our numbers as of today with the cap in place. So this is a mix of state and local funding. Roughly 46% comes from state and 46% comes from the locality. Our numbers are 45.5 per 1,000 students for those support positions. Specialized support positions, 3.1 to 1,000, and that includes, in that tiny little writing, school nurses, psychologists, social workers, behavior specialists, and behavior assistants. And then currently we're looking at 1 counselor for every 258 students. Any questions about those numbers?
Ms. Frakely?
Yes,
If
ma'am.
you could, just for everyone listening and for our guests as well, could you go into a little bit more detail on what behavior specialists and assistants do? And also, we had quite a few more students in our school system this year than what we had estimated.
Yes, that's very true.
It seems that the population of students is growing exponentially as opposed to linearly, which to me seems like this would be something that we would need even have a greater need for.
Right.
But
You're-
first question, behavior specialists and
Absolutely right.
assistants.
And I would say, thank you for connecting those dots, because as a growing community, this is impacting us right now. Behavior specialists and behavior assistants, I believe, are in Dr. Hummer's wheelhouse, so I would
I can dive
happily
into
turn
that
it
for you,
over, if
yes.
you don't mind.
So the behavioral specialists oversee the day-to-day functioning of overcoming behaviors within a school setting. So they work specifically with teachers on managing and maintaining behavioral classroom management skills in their classroom, and then they also work very specifically with specific students that might have behavioral needs. The behavioral assistants work in collaboration or of the oversight of a behavioral specialist. So they can't take the lead on the implementation of a strategy. They can't take the lead on the implementation of any sort of training. The behavioral specialist does that, and the behavioral assistant helps support with supporting those needs. So for example, we have special education teachers who implement instruction, who implement strategies and supports to the IEP, and then we have instructional aides who are a supplement to that particular teacher. They can't lead a lesson, but they can help supplement the support in the classroom. Same scenario with behavioral specialists and behavior assistants.
Okay. Kind of a follow-up question to psychologists, just to clarify. These psychologists are not giving therapy in schools. They are to evaluate students for IEPs and certain curriculum-based things, correct?
No, they do provide therapy, but it's through an IEP.
Through an IEP,
Yes,
right.
yes. So it's not something that they will just go up to a random student and provide any sort of service. The family has to agree to that service, and it's a counseling service. So there's only 3 individuals in a school setting that can provide counseling services. It's a counselor, and of course it's due to their license, of course. It's a counselor, social worker, and a psychologist. So those 3 can provide that, but they can only provide that with parent permission.
Got it.
Yep,
Thank you.
of course.
So just to reiterate the point, we're at 44.5 per 1,000. The state caps that, I believe, at 24, I think was what the previous slide said. So if
24.
we're making up the delta there in terms of appropriating things like raises, we're having to cover that additional cost.
Mrs. Freakley,
Yes, sir.
is there on the school counselor ratio, school counselor, 1 counselor for every 258 students?
Yes, sir.
Is there a national standard as to what that number should be as opposed to where we're at?
That's a great question. You look like you're ready to answer. Go for it. No, go for it.
Yeah, so that was, if you can go back to the previous slide.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so the state is, what we get supported through an SOQ is 1 to 325. What the national recommendation is, there's a counseling coalition, essentially, that it's 1 to 250. Is what they recommend.
So currently, you're 8 students over the national average.
If you can go back to forward to that slide, we're 8 students, we're close to it, but we're 8 students over. Yes, sir. And as Mrs. Frakely said, this is based on the needs. And this is based on the dollars that we get from the state through the SOQ and the additional dollars that we need to meet these needs we get from the locality. We only get funded for the 1 to 325.
Okay, so here's the big ask. You'll see the counselor ratio is adjusted in line with the number that Dr. Hummer just referenced is the national suggested ratio average, 1 to 250. So we're not far off there, but it is an adjustment. Support staff personnel ratio be adjusted to 30 to 1,000. That would bring us down roughly that 14 and a half number that you saw previously. And then student support position ratio be adjusted to the 4 to 1,000 in that category, where we were 3.1, I believe, previously. Yeah. So again, just to reiterate, this is in the best interest of our students because these are people directly in front of our kids. So the more support that we can get to our classroom teachers, the more support and resources that these individuals provide our students, the more we're able to potentially bring down things like burnout, overwhelm, discipline and behavior issues, all of the things that go into the impact we see with adequate staffing. Any questions? All right. I will happily turn it over to Ms. Shantae Knight.
Thank you, Katie. All right, and good evening to everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. So I have the pleasure this evening of talking to you about student opportunities, but most importantly, post-secondary opportunities, and really the impact and the power of those. So before I speak to my presentation and my slide deck, what I really want to start with is an article that was published actually today. So if you get an opportunity to take a look at Fortune magazine, and in Fortune magazine, they highlight, after having interviewed, I think it was nearly 1,000 U.S. leaders across some of our biggest Fortune 500 companies and Fortune 250 companies. And these leaders have expressed, and by leaders I mean workplace leaders, CEOs, and things of that nature. One of their greatest concerns is the new generation of work, the new generation who's coming into our workforce. And some of the concerns they highlighted as a reason for their frustration is readiness for work. And so what I get the pleasure today to talk to you about is how we get students ready for work. More specifically, for us, that work comes through our CTE and Career Technical Education program. These employers who want and are hungry for children to come prepared to take on all of these new responsibilities. School districts are doing a fantastic job of making certain that our children have content knowledge and competency around those skills, but it's the soft skills that they're not able to come into the workplace with because of lack of exposure to industry opportunities. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. All right, so from this particular slide here, I'm going to give you spoiler alert. Our ask and my goal is to talk about increasing post-secondary opportunities for our students. And what this slide really just reflects is that we're limited in doing that because of limited funding. So where do we get post-secondary opportunities? Instruction, my department, which I'm so excited and proud of, but one of the most special and unique extensions of instruction in our department is Career and Technical Education, also known as CTE. And as a part of Career and Technical Education, we have an extension of that, and it's called work-based learning. For me, work-based learning is really the piece de la resistance. This is really what we are working towards, right? Students are in core instruction on a regular basis. Career and technical education and work-based learning is the authentic learning side of the work. It's when we really get to take theory to action. We really get to, as older kids, instead of playing in sandboxes like little people, we get to play at work, right? And really explore and dig into those opportunities. So that's what work-based learning really allows us to do. So for us, our work-based learning model is, I guess I would consider it a three-pillar model. It focuses on making certain that when our students are in the workplace and working with our partners, three things happen. Those experiences are coordinated at the school level to ensure that the environments that we place our children in for these authentic learning experiences are safeguarded. So they're in the right places, you know, and they are protected, and we have all types of agreements in place to ensure their protections while they're in these workplace environments. But second to that, it's integrated with their instructional program. So if they're in a business class, we want to make certain that those skills that they're learning in our business classes are some of the skills they're experiencing when they're out working and participating in these work-based learning experiences. And then most importantly, we're very proud of our community partnerships, which is where they get an opportunity to do that work. Our work-based learning continuum, or we could also call it a framework, we start planting the seeds about career readiness from the very onset of when children walk through the doors. I mean, you'll see from kindergarten classes where they're flipping through books, where they're pointing out careers like firefighters and our civil service employees, and they're looking at police officers in our schools. So we start to plant the seeds very early about the world of work for children. But when they get to secondary school is when we really get to unlock those doors for them to explore those experiences, and we're really excited about that. So we walk them through 3 phases of that. The first phase is awareness, right? Just to know what's around, what's available to you, and I'm gonna unpack that in just a moment. Phase 2 is now that you have an awareness of this umbrella of opportunity, and the world is so rich and ripe with so many things to expose our children to. The second phase is let's peek behind the layers a little bit and see what that looks like, and let's experience that. And then after that, we hope we have really excited our children and inspired them, not walk them into any path in particular. We want to expose them to every path possible. Then we get to prepare them for that work. So let's look at what we do here in Frederick County to do just that. So for career awareness, starting as early as 6th grade, this is just a small snippet or a screenshot of the myriad of things that we offer our children, but we invite guest speakers to all of our schools. They get the opportunity to participate in what we call Worlds of Work, which is going to change a little bit, but I'm excited about it. I think it's fantastic, and it's a fantastic opportunity for all children. So the Worlds of Work. Industry tours, getting them outside of the 4 walls of school buildings and really getting out into experiencing these industries firsthand. Every middle schooler, that career investigations course is required by the state, so every one of our middle schoolers must participate in that course. And then we have, all of the fun doesn't end in June. We also offer a summer program called the Career and Technical Education, or CTE, Charting Pathways program, and that's where students over the course of 3 weeks get the opportunity to experience 3 separate industries. Again, exposure, exposure, exposure. And after awareness, we're back into phase 2 that I just mentioned a few moments ago. And as a part of phase 2, here are just a few opportunities to show that our students get to peek behind that curtain just a little bit more. Job shadow programs where they get to go work and walk hand in hand, so to speak, with folks in the industries that they are excited and interested in. And we have a partnership with Shenandoah University where we get to teach all things education and hopefully inspire the next generation of teachers to be a part of our workforce. Continued partnerships with them through athletic programs, aviation, aerospace. Again, so many things that we get to expose these children to. And then as they get a little older, primarily our 11th and 12th graders, this is where the career preparedness piece comes in. So they get to participate in externships, internships, cooperative education opportunities, and these usually last about a year, but that's really immersed in the industry of their choice, as long as we have a partnership for that, and they really get to experience it on a day-to-day basis. So the connection I wanted to make to this work and the article that I mentioned is the more opportunities that we can give children to really experience the workforce without having to guess, without having to waste money starting down a career or college pathway and then decide to change their mind, having employers cut you within the first, I think the article says, within months of being hired, they're being released from work because of their inability, they lack the endurance, their unpreparedness for the work. We don't want the students of Frederick County, or really any student in the state of Virginia, to have that experience. We want our children ready. And the best way to get ready is to walk through this in an authentic fashion. So if you're exhausted with hearing me talk about all of these opportunities, my petition is that exhaustion is just me talking. Imagine being the person doing this. And so for Frederick County, we have one work-based learning coordinator doing all of this work. And again, these are simple snapshots. These are not all of the experiences that she's coordinating for children. This is just a short amount. So one individual is doing that for all 3 of our high schools. And so what our ask is that we are recommending, yes, ma'am, we're recommending that we hope to have your support in increasing the ratio so that we could add at least one work-based coordinator per school so that we can increase those post-secondary opportunities for all students, and therefore we don't have to continue to limit them because one person only has so much bandwidth. So again, we are excited about the future of education. We're excited about the future of work. We're excited about the opportunities that we have here for Frederick County, but we want to expand those. So with that, I thank you for listening, and I'm going to pause to give you an opportunity to ask any questions.
I would like to ask a couple questions.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
how does a student determine which area that they would like to pursue? Is that done with the parent guidance? Is that done with a counselor? How does that process work?
Yes, ma'am. There's a variety of ways, to be honest. And so again, we plant those seeds as early as the elementary school, and we hope those conversations start there and in our homes. But at the secondary level, the first, I guess, formal opportunity is through our career investigations course, where again, they're exposed to so many careers. And we hope those conversations are happening at the dinner table or in the living room or in the car about, what do you want to do? Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? We expose them even in the middle school to their electives career wheel, where they can get an opportunity to practice and experience some of these things. So that's where it really starts. But then again, we have all of those other opportunities that I shared on the slide, worlds of work, so many of these partnership industry tours. So that's where they start to begin to hammer out what they like and even what they don't like. And that's the beauty of exposure. You get involved in things and you go, you know what? It's really not for me. And we want them to make those decisions early on as well. Yeah.
I'd like to go to the slide, the third slide from your last, I believe.
Let's take a look.
Yeah. So, to me, a lot of these jobs here are either public jobs or health-based jobs. And I like, we should get these kids into more private industry type situations, HP Hood, Perry Engineering. My thing is, everyone pays taxes through their paycheck, whether it's a public, everyone pays their health insurance. But at the end of the day, private industry puts the tax dollars in there for us. And we need to get these kids out and show them all that's, wow.
We just want to make sure you have the opportunity to be heard.
And, if people look at their paycheck, it's their taxes and their health insurance. It's the biggest thing that comes out of it. We need to get more tax dollars coming in from private industry to help fund all the public stuff that we need to do. And I say a lot of times, how many people in the private industry paying taxes, auto mechanics, plumbers, whatever you want to say, how many of their tax dollars, I think state of Virginia is like 12% that we pay income tax, roughly. I might not be exact on that. How many individuals that pay in 12% of their salary a year does it take to fund one teacher? It's a lot. Mm-hmm. And we can't just keep recycling this public money. We got to encourage,
Sure thing.
we got to encourage private industries to be successful, and that's where our tax dollars are coming from. So I'd like to be able to, I know y'all doing a great job, and I understand that.
Thank you.
But we got to get out and show what the other side is too. And I know Navy Federal unions not necessarily a public or
Yes,
a health care department, and all that. I'm not saying take those away.
Mm-hmm. We understand. We understand.
Right.
And just know that if we had it our way, we would expose our children to every opportunity in our locality, because they were limited, of course, because of transportation and logistics. We have to have those businesses in our community in order for them to participate in those opportunities. But as long as the area continues to grow and businesses come here, we'll certainly expose our children to them, and we'll work and make a concerted effort to form partnerships that will allow us to do that.
And I think that kind of turns to the crux of the matter is we currently just have one person
That's right.
going and recruiting and kind of courting these different businesses. Back when I was a senior at Sharando 24 years ago, we had something different. it was like a co-op work study, and Trex used to be on that list. I had several friends who were engineer hopefuls that did an externship, sort of, at the time
Yes,
with Trex. And I can only imagine
still have that one,
Oh, we
too.
do? Excellent, okay.
ma'am.
But I can only imagine if we had some extra manpower, the different relationships that could be built, not only here in the county too, but other industries that perhaps are across, other companies across the mountain. We
That's
definitely
right.
want to focus on Frederick County first. But I think if we had that more manpower, we'd have more opportunities for our students.
Absolutely, because a portion of that time that our work-based learning coordinators are doing this work, I don't want to, this is an arbitrary number, but I'm going to throw it out there that at least half of their job is spent tethered to children, because they are the ones supporting, supervising, in some cases even driving children to some of these experiences. So that limits the amount of time that they are in the field trying to coordinate and build these relationships and partnerships. So just having the opportunity to expand this and seeing the importance of it, because it's not the core instruction that the children are lacking when they go in there. They have the minds of scientists, they have the minds of engineers, they have the minds of the next attorneys and the next legislators. It's readiness for the workforce when you step into it. What does professionalism look like? Are you prepared to write that resume and be able to speak to those particular skills? Do you have any skills, because we haven't exposed you to anything to be able to talk to? You don't have any fluency, so when that new employer is trying to interview you, there's nothing. And you have to remember, all of our children are not going straight into college. For us, post-secondary opportunities include college, but it also includes military careers as well as the workforce. So we just want to make sure that our children are nimble enough to go in any direction that they want. And we believe that it starts with authentic learning experiences.
What is the cost to add that one person to that position?
That's going to be my question.
Oh, Mr. Bell, I don't know. Dr. Hummer, I knew you were going to ask me something I didn't know.
I'm kind of looking at Patty and Katie. I don't know. 80, including benefits, 80 to 100,000 roughly? Yeah.
All
Including-
right. And then my next question is to Ms. Brinkley, how much would it cost to lower the caps?
That's a great question. Oh, sorry. I need to go.
Allow me some time to find that out for you.
Sure, but what I'm getting at is if our esteemed guests would just move that coca line, that's the mountain. We might be able to pay for some of these things. You wouldn't have to bring them into your assembly just by moving the coca line, providing more than 25%. Now, I get it's a big mountain that you'd have to climb to convince Alexandria, Prince William County, Loudoun County, and Fairfax County to give up some of that 100% that they are currently getting. But they're getting it based on the fact that they were losing teachers to Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. And now we're losing teachers to them. So kind of makes sense.
Go ahead.
Honored guest, I want to go ahead and, I'll just be loud. I think you're off too. No? All right. So I work on a construction site. It's my daily job. This year, our general contractor came out and they had children from Fairfax County walking the job site, high school students coming out as part of their CTE program to kind of get their feet wet in the construction industry. I know we offer a myriad of opportunities here at Frederick County. However, I agree with Senator French. We can do more to get into the private sector. I think having these additional positions will actually better facilitate us in getting these children exposed to these opportunities. I can't tell you how many times I go out on a job site and we'll have a new electrician starting, fresh into the apprenticeship program. And to Ms. Knight's point, they wash out pretty quick. They don't have those soft skills. They don't know what they don't know, and they don't have that exposure. Maybe if they had, maybe instead of being an electrician, they would have fared better as HVAC or mechanical. This is something that we can be the tip of the spear in Virginia and nationwide, quite frankly. If you look across the nation, we don't have children going into the trade. grades. We don't have those tax dollars coming back. So kids are leaving this area for other opportunities. Maybe they leave Shenandoah County, maybe they leave Frederick County, Clark County, and they go across the mountain to Loudoun County, where we are building a lot of these data centers and whatnot. And you know, those tax dollars, we're losing those tax dollars over the mountain because of that. I think this is a good way to keep Frederick County students, homegrown students, right here. And if we're not building those industries here, they're going to love to stay here and then go over the mountain to work. Unfortunately, like Mr. Bell said with the coke, we'll get into that later. You know, it does make it cheaper to live out here. However, you know, all the job opportunities are over on that side of the mountain. So I'm really in support of getting these professionals in front of our students so that we can build further relationships. Currently, we do have stuff like our auto body where we do have a high rate of success where we're hiring, local business are hiring students. I don't know for some of the other stuff or like our pharmacy techs, I think they're getting hired pretty regularly, but like you said, it's not our private sectors. And I think that is an untapped resource that we can get into. So I appreciate that thought. I hope that we can do better about getting.
One thing on the coca line, as you all know, I live in Shenandoah County, and if you notice, none of those slides had Shenandoah County in them. I represent this whole district, and I will work hard to make it work for everybody. But we will definitely have a problem when Frederick County has it in Shenandoah, and Warren and Clark have it, and Shenandoah County don't. I'll definitely be up against it, you know, and that's you know, because then you're going to be. Then I'm going to go to a school board meeting somewhere else, and they're going to say 30% of our teachers are going to Frederick County, okay? You know, somewhere, and that's what you run into. And when we go to Richmond, and we're sitting there with the rest of those legislators trying to get wheels under something like this, they're going to say, wait a minute, you know, you're not coming to Page County, you're not coming to Augusta County, you know, so. I realize what you're up against, but are we just moving the line? Then we have to ask, how do we fix this problem?
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much. If there are no further questions, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
So in my day job, I'm an IT recruiter. I recruit technological people, professionals for government contracts, federal government contracts. And there's going to be a huge gap in about 5 years, particularly in telecommunications. And so there's an effort afoot to try to get children exposed to RF engineering at a much younger age, robotics, those kinds of things that would encourage their exploration in that area. And so it's interesting to me, and I would be interested in hearing your perspective on how to expose children even in elementary school. We are, you know, Americans build things. That's who we are. We're builders. And so allowing children to build things, you know, you learn math through the building process. You learn you learn teamwork if you have to work with a team to build something. So, and how we expose our young people to this, because I think if we capture their imaginations when they're really young, then they will never have to work, because they'll love what they do.
That's right. That's right.
And so I'm not sure how to do that, but I do know that that's a conversation that I'm having with the leaders in my industry about how do we find these future RF engineers and these future telecommunications technicians and folks that are going to work, because this thing runs our lives, and it has lots of little radios and radar. It has a lot of stuff in it. And so that's the future.
Yes, ma'am. And I think the good thing is that the state recognizes that. So with our new computer science standards that are expected to be integrated across K-8 and eventually throughout K-12, but that is where that exposure at the early grade levels comes from. And the state has given us enough leniency to try to find our pathway in terms of how we get those standards integrated across curriculum, because at the elementary level and even at the middle school level, we don't have a computer science course per se, but those standards are expected to be integrated wherever we can do that. And so that's where those early conversations will come from. And because they're a part of our state standards, which is the curriculum that we support, that's where we get to expose children to some of those authentic opportunities to play, to learn, to see, to experience that early on. And we're still working on that, but we will get there. And when we get there, hopefully that will trigger and inspire the type of love that you just talked about, the passion for work. For them, it's purpose-driven, and it's essential. We won't be able to function without a workforce that can do that. So I think we have to think about that workforce like we think of so many others. At some point, we might have to incentivize people to be a part of it. But I think if we can at least spark that love for learning early, through those standards, which gives us permission, because teachers are not supposed to be teaching content outside of what the state asks us to do, but that's where we can start that conversation.
What are some of the soft skills that your research has identified that young people are missing? Because I'm curious, I want to compare them to the ones that I get reported about every day.
Well, I'll tell you really honestly, some of it is just basic communication, whether it's verbal communication and written communication, public speaking, the ability to advocate, self-advocacy, negotiation skills. And if you read the article, you'll see basic things like professional wear, professional dress, right? Endurance in the workplace, this idea that, I don't know, we came from a different generation where we just powered through. And we learned that early on. And I had, I will credit my father. Both my parents were hard workers, but my father in particular, work ethic was just extremely solid. That's what I saw every day. So he was consistent and he was very routine. And I'm as systematic as he is. He walked through the door like clockwork, and you saw the same experience every day. But I think our children now are exposed to something a little different. And so that grit is missing, and I know that's not something we typically classify as a soft skill, but grit is important because work can be hard. And if children don't understand that you have to be able to push through the hard moments, even with my children, I have a high schooler and a middle schooler, and you know, at the first sign of a cough, it's "Mommy, I'm not feeling well." And while we certainly don't want to be expose anyone to any contagions, but honey, a cough is not going to keep you at home. You need to wash your hands, keep your nails out of your mouth, and go on to school, and let me know if you can't make it during the day. So I think some of that is lost, and of course, this is my personal opinion, but I think you will find research that supports at least the first 5 that I mentioned in terms of soft skills, just communication, eye contact, right? Social skills and being able to read social clues and read a room and check the energy and know when to step back and say that's enough of that conversation, how to engage a person eye to eye when you're having a conversation. Employers that find that important. If you're going to represent their company, they need to know that you can do that. So those are things that are missing, but children won't get the opportunity if we don't put them in environments and expose them to experiences where they get to try that. Sitting in a classroom locked into 4 walls all day long talking about content won't give them that. It's too inauthentic. We need them to actually be in these environments where they can ask questions and see the day-to-day experiences and go, you know, this is a lot. And I'm going to hush up after this, but I have a personal living experience with this because my son is thinking about pre-med. And so thanks to the proliferation of social media, I'm able to show him all of the things that people now say about the world of medicine that we didn't know. So when you romanticize this idea that you want to be a doctor, but do you really know what that means? Do you know what the sacrifice looks like? Do you know what you'll be giving up? So before we make this investment in your future, do your best to be clear. So exposing them to everything that they can so they will know, yeah, Mommy, this is probably not for me. He's science-oriented. He's bent towards that direction. But does it have to be this? Do you want to do something else recreationally and then experience science in a different way? But I think exposure is the key, no matter which form we give it to them.
What we see in my industry is lack of perseverance.
Yes, ma'am.
That's one of the
Yep,
areas.
that's the endurance.
Showing up on time.
Yeah.
That's probably the greatest complaint that we
Yeah.
get, is that people just show up when they think that it's okay to come in for
Yep.
whatever reason. And of course, there's traffic issues in our
Sure.
community, so, that is a factor, but you leave 20 minutes early.
That's
Or
right.
you don't just show
That's
up
right.
late. So these are the kinds of things that our kids are missing.
That's right.
That they don't realize. They have to be on time,
Yes, ma'am.
and they have to stay.
Yep,
the
for the
whole
full day.
day.
That's right, the full day of work, right?
But that happens, that has to happen between parents holding them accountable and school discipline.
Yeah.
And so otherwise, they're never going to learn that those are required. And it's going to be really painful when you're an adult and you haven't learned that lesson.
It is a very costly reality
It is.
for some of our
For
young people.
everybody.
That's right.
I'd like to make another comment about
Yes,
the
sir.
coca line, if I may, Senator French. With all due respect, Loudoun and Fairfax County, with all due respect to Loudoun and Fairfax County, the two wealthiest counties in the nation, and giving them the full funding seems to be putting the eggs in the wrong basket. And you say that, if you increase the percentage here in Frederick and Clark and Fredericksburg and Collier, then Shenandoah want a piece of the pie too. Well, I hope they do. I absolutely hope that they do, because I'm familiar with some of the Shenandoah County schools, and they need as much more help as the Frederick County schools, as the Warren County schools, as all of the other schools that are not in Loudoun and Fairfax County. Alexandria, I mean, I used to live in Alexandria. I couldn't afford to live there. I'm married with 2 kids. But as a single person, I could rent. But what I'm saying is, I think saying that we have to start somewhere is not the right. I think we have to really look at this and figure out how we can help the most schools that truly need that help versus the schools that are getting that and don't necessarily need it as much as the other schools. I know it's a sticky wicket because it'd be taking money away from other schools, but I'm good at that.
Okay, well, thank you,
And
guys.
I'm sorry, if I could piggyback off of what Mr. Bell just said, Frederick County and Winchester is one of the fastest growing areas in the Commonwealth. I've been working in Manassas now for the last 10 years, and just going up 66 every morning. This morning, as a matter of fact, the amount of traffic that I hit before I even get to Front Royal on 66, they're all coming down here to live, and they're going up there to work. So we are growing by leaps and bounds. All you have to do is look at this county and see houses that are going up. I've found houses I didn't even know were being built in sections. So we are growing a lot faster than a lot of the other people around, and that would be the other benefit for moving that coca line. And I understand the intricacies of Shenandoah County, Clark County, and all those other folks, but Frederick County is booming, and it would help us tremendously.
It's certainly a state advantage. It's a beautiful part of our state, so it's very attractive to be here, so I can imagine. But if there are no further questions, I thank you for entertaining our request here and at least considering it. Thank you very much, and I'm going to get the opportunity to turn it over to one of my favorite colleagues, Mr. Goodwin.
Good evening. Thought we'd play a little game to get to know each other a little bit since we've been sitting a while. So I'm going to call out restaurants in Frederick County. You tell me if you've been there. Are you ready? Paladin. All right. How about P1, 2, and 3? Who's been to all? Not 3. Okay. How about PAX? How many of you have been to PAX for a frozen treat? Who hasn't been? Tell me about Jordan Springs Market. Anybody been to Jordan Springs Market? All right. Taqueria Guadalajara. All right, fantastic. Now I'm going to call out one I wonder if anyone in here has been there besides me. Riley's Chick Pork Fish. Highway 50 in the gas station. You got to try it.
That's only you, Shane.
And finally, the Gainsborough Market that's finally opened again recently for a fantastic BLT. Do you know why I bring all this up? Because do you know what people are talking about when I stop in those places to grab something? They're talking about the same thing. How many people are here? One of the things that we have to figure out, because we have the people who've lived here and loved here for so long, and we're trying to figure out how do we make room for all of the people that are coming here. So when they arrive, we want to make sure as a school system that we have a fantastic learning facility for each one of our students. So it's my opportunity to talk to you a little bit about building and maintaining our school facilities. By the way, I don't eat at all those places every day. In the 450 plus square miles of the county and my duties as assistant superintendent, I enjoy stopping and talking especially to the people, because while it may be a beautiful place, the people here far exceed the beauty of the place. It's a fantastic place. So I want to talk to you a little bit about supporting school revenue streams and figuring out how do we pay for our schools, how do we build the new ones, and how do we take care of the ones that we already have. And also try to figure out if we can get a little bit of help from you all in terms of just working with localities. I love working with Dr. Hummer, and the reason I love that is because he's great at putting people together. We work very hard with our county government. We work very hard with the board all the time. We work very hard with you. Dr. Hummer is in love with making people partners and working together so that great outcomes happen for kids. And if great things happen for kids, great things happen for families. And if great things happen for families, great things happen for communities. So we're excited to be a part of that. So I just want to show you a little bit about the buildings that we have. So I've broken the slides down into 3 different spaces: our elementary spaces in schools, our middle schools, and then our high schools. And then we have some buildings that don't really fit into any of those 3 categories. Apple Pie Ridge and Bass Hoover Elementary School are 2 schools that were kind of built with that open concept. So we have some work to do there. You can look at those being our oldest elementary schools, 50 and 49. I happen to think 50 is not that old, but in terms of a building, I think it could be. So we do have some work to do. Middletown Elementary School is booming. We have a lot of work to do there. It's probably one of the fastest growing areas of the county at this time. Stephen City, Middletown, southern part of the county, starting to push over into Orchard View just a little bit. People are coming from everywhere. If you want to know, just go during the week or go on the weekend. Stop in. I don't think I called out Schaefer's. If you want to figure out what's going on in that part of the county, talk to somebody in Schaefer's when you go in there, when you stop by. We also have Jordan Springs, which is a school that was built, and when we were able to open it up, it was already out of capacity. So we're trying to make some corrections right now with funding, working with our local government and our Board of Supervisors group, and we're very grateful for the opportunities we have to work together with those folks. Middle schools, we have 4. You're sitting in Jameswood Middle School, but did anybody go here? No, Jameswood High School used to be here. I was just making sure. Okay, I didn't think so. So this used to be Jameswood High School. So it's a fantastic building. As you walk in, you probably can tell we've spent some time, effort, and energy here with painting the interior, the exterior. We're also adding some new bleachers out back, working on the track, trying to restore this fantastic facility to what everyone knows in Frederick County is a special place, because this is really a special place to a lot of people. We have Admiral Byrd there as the next youngest school at 19. Of course, Frederick County Middle School, almost out there to the Gainsborough community, is 8 years old, and our newest is Ayler Middle School, which is just near Sharando. And then here are our high schools. Jameswood High School, 44 years old. We're completing this year about a $72.8 million project there. Very proud of that. The students are really engaged and excited when we opened up this year for the new spaces with cafeteria, science labs, library. If you haven't been there and you'd like to see that, let us know, because Mr. Kenny, myself, anyone would love to walk you through and give you an opportunity to take a look at that. Sharando High School we have, and Sharando is really crowded. We have a number of modulars that are there. We had to put them on top of the band practice field, so we're really almost out of spaces. So we have kids who have to go in and out of a brick and mortar building, so we'd like to fix that. And then Millbrook High School is our newest high school. It's just 21 years old, which is hard to believe because it still looks really like brand new. So it's a beautiful space. Here's the age of our buildings for the other facilities. The school board office, which is right next door there, 63 years old. The old Cincinnati Road Elementary School, 58 years old. That's where NREP is located now. Dow J, 54 years old. Dow J is booming with lots of new birth and ideas for career and technology and all kinds of fantastic things. We have Support Facilities West, where Bright Futures is located. So if you notice, those are all 50 years and older. And then the other 2, Facility Services, 37 years old, which is almost up to West Virginia. It's in Clearbrook. And then transportation facilities, our newest facility, that's not a school facility, 12 years of age. So there is funding that becomes available. So basically, we get some state lottery proceeds there, and we're permitted to use about 40% of those proceeds on non-recurring facility needs and maintenance and construction. For FCPS, that means about $1.5 million. So the matching local fund, which is required because there is a local match that's required, is about $1 million. So we allocate all these funds to support basically preventative maintenance and equipment replacement in each one of those. And we work with our board. We have a building and grounds committee, which Mr. Adkins happens to chair, to make sure that we take care of our buildings that already exist. So we'd like to recommend for you to consider, if you would, for us respectfully, we ask, that if you could, to try to help us create any additional revenue streams for support for renovation and construction of new buildings. Because in a county that is probably the fastest growing county by many people's measures in the Commonwealth, as Mr. Sturdivant just stated, we need it. People are coming. And if you want to go with me sometime to any of those restaurants that I named, you can help me ask those folks the same questions, and I think you'll get the same answer, trying to figure out how to deal with growth. So as I stop there for just a moment, I want to, Dr. Harmer, I don't know if you want to say anything additional, if there are questions.
Mr. Goodwin, I just wanted to add a question. Actually, are we still at 16 modular trailers at Sharando, or have they increased?
We're still there at 16 at this time.
And the oldest one, correct me if I'm wrong, was there when you went to school, Ms. Klein? So that's years ago.
Just a couple.
24.
So for 24 years, there's been at least, 2 or 3 modular trailers there, and now we have 16. And, you know, without additional revenue streams, we're going to probably have more. If the Board of Supervisors doesn't approve the 4th high school, we're definitely going to have more. So any and all help that you can give us in your respective positions would be graciously accepted.
If I could just, and I'm going to take it easy on my voice, but I want to add a couple pieces of context here. And first of all, thank you for being here, and thanks for letting us sit together. This is a really neat opportunity for us to be able to collaborate, and I appreciate you because I know there's a lot of constituencies that you're serving. So when Harry Truman was president and this building opened, we never would have imagined the growth that this area is seeing. But now we have kids in Frederick County going to a school that opened when Harry Truman was in the White House, and other kids going to a brand new school that's only been open a few years. So these disparities really are only growing. Having worked in this building, I can tell you it's beautiful, it's great, it's dated, and the kids know that. And we want to do right by these kids, and we want to do right by these families. I also want to be cognizant of the fact that we're asking for money, right, which I don't take lightly. This ask is slightly different in the sense that we're asking for you to give us permission to cover some of our own costs. Help us find revenue streams so that we don't have to come to you, we don't have to come to the state and ask people around the Commonwealth to shift their local wealth to us. Help us create those revenue streams where we can pay for some of these things. Also on the COCA line, because I didn't say anything about it before, when we get into the business of picking winners and losers, this is what it looks like, right? And I feel comfortable saying, especially for many of us on this panel, being of the political persuasion we are, that idea really does bleed out, and it eventually negatively, it adversely impacts lots of groups of people. Can we find a way to be more strategic with that money? Sure. Could we have a philosophical conversation about whether we should be picking winners and losers in the first place? Probably. But as long as we're shifting money from one locale to another, I just want to make sure that the counties that don't need the money don't continue getting 100% of the money. They can cover those budget shortfalls easily because they have the tax base. Shenandoah County, Warren County, Frederick County, we can't. We want to, but we're not there. So that's just a respectful ask that I would have of the three of you.
So as far as this ask goes, one of the things that we're running into in our local community here within Frederick County is the growth. We're building new houses left and right. If you go down to Middletown, you look up around Jordan Springs, the Snowden Bridge area, those proffers were set in place years and years ago, before the impact of the people coming in and those housing developments being built. The 2004 dollars, not the 2024 dollar. So with those builders coming in, we don't have enough to not only support our schools, but our fire departments, our police officers, all that goes within a community. One of the revenue streams that I think everybody here has thought of is kind of raising those proffers and having those who want to build in our community be part of our community and contribute to our community. So with that, I would ask that we've set a time limit, for when developments are being built and when proffer dollars are actually being taken. If we did that, it would be a more realistic dollar amount, because some of these developments have been on the books for 10, 20 years. They're just now getting built. I understand that, but the people who were in office then are not in office now, and they're not being held accountable for that. It is the way it is because of politics or whatever, but having these additional revenue streams or a more robust revenue stream from local builders who are impacting these communities would go a long way to alleviate some of the stress that we're seeing to the local tax dollars. I think that would be a win for everybody, bipartisan all around, to have something like that come across your guys' desk. So with that, I appreciate your support, and I think that would be a good win for all of us. Thank you.
All right, I'll move to the next topic, although I could name many more restaurants if anybody would like to stay after for... Well, I could tell you Mr. Perry's Fine Establishment has a fantastic breakfast if you go early in the morning at Rock Harbor, and we could go out to Shawnee Springs. We could go to lots of places, so let me know. We have a lot of, the great part about those places is really the people. They're fantastic. The food's great. The people are incredible, so.
Shane, I think you have a little barbecue sauce, right?
Do I have a little? Okay, thank you. Probably was pimento cheese. School resource officers and safety is the next topic I'd like to discuss with you for a moment. As Dr. Hummer mentioned at the beginning, safety is paramount. It comes first. If people aren't safe, they can't learn. If none of us feel safe, we can't function. So there's just a couple of pieces here I want to make sure we explain a little bit about. We are very fortunate with the partnership that we have with the Frederick County Sheriff's Office. We have elementary school SROs, which many, many divisions across the Commonwealth do not have. They may have them at the secondary level, but our sheriff and the team they have there, the school safety division, make sure that we have coverage at all of our schools throughout all of the days. So we're really thankful for that. There are 19 SROs, a DARE officer who works with students, and then 2 supervisors of the SROs. And then we have 4 of our schools that share 2 SROs. They may go back and forth. I want to make sure the second point here I cover clearly. The school safety division annual salary is a little over $1.5 million. That salary is a part of the Frederick County Sheriff's Office budget. That is what funds. They have the money. They make that fund. We have a memorandum of understanding with the Sheriff's Office, but those dollars come into the Sheriff's Office. That's not a part of our budget. Dr. Humbert, okay, we'll make sure I covered that adequately. We do currently have 4 SROs that are grant funded, and we get those grant dollars on a 4-year cycle, but unfortunately that grant is about to dry up. So as a school division, we have accessed about $500,000 in grant dollars to address safety needs, as Dr. Hummer mentioned. Those include the weapons detection systems and pieces such as that. But I'm concerned that the grants are drying up. So what do we do to make sure that we provide adequate safety for our schools? And you could predict what my ask will be at the end. So I won't show you, but I'm just leading up to it. We experience a number of threats that we have to address on a frequent basis, not daily all the time, but a good bit. So some of the challenges we wanted to address with you, just to state out loud: behavioral threats, students' behavior at schools. Sometimes they're predictable, sometimes unpredictable. in terms of behaviors. Social media threats have really been on the increase. We have a lot, every division in the Commonwealth and actually across the country is having to deal with threats on social media. September the 10th and 11th for us was a good example of that. This school division, we made the decision with my input, Dr. Hummer's input, Mr. Conlon, who's behind me, our safety security administrator, and many, many others, that was the right thing to do on that day. We know that impacts families when we do that because it just happened. There was no notice. We made the decision we could to keep people safe. I believe it was the right decision with the information we had, and I think the feedback we've received from our community is thank you. I know that there was some displaced folks and some schedules that had to be adjusted, but we take safety seriously. We have to do that each and every time. Bullying, self-harm, suicide, substance abuse, weapons detection system expansion and operations, because that's not cheap, it's expensive. Just to give you an idea, each one of the units, which includes 2 standards and also a wand, our division has decided that we'd purchase a wand. I don't think we've used the wand. For maybe if we hear something as a student goes through, we need to, but we've purchased those as a kit, $19,600 for 1 unit. So when we add 5 to a school, that's $100,000. So it's not inexpensive, but it's necessary. That's where we are with our board's permission to move that. We started with a pilot in our division at Dow J. Howard. We moved that to Millbrook after September 10th and 11th. And now we've decided with the board's permission to move those into all of our high schools. So we're working on the rollout of those issues, with those devices rather now. We do see an increase in gang activity, gang affiliation. And also we have 2 campuses that are located in the city. While these 2 buildings next to each other are fantastic, it also is right here on a major thoroughfare for traffic, which also brings foot traffic at times for students. So we just have some different challenges when you have school in a county rather than on a campus and things like that. So we're right here in the city. As of September 30th, we have conducted as a school division 72 threat assessments. You can see the kind that are there. We have different levels: no threat, low threat, moderate threat, and then high or imminent threat. So we have, of the 72, 52 had no threat identified. If we feel like a threat was made or we find anything there, we have a threat assessment protocol that we follow, which includes members of the school staff and others. We had 8 low-level threats, 8 moderate-level threats, and 4 high-level threats, which required decisions. So of those 72 assessments, 24 of those actually were conducted that week of the 9th through the 13th of September, that 10th and 11th time frame that I discussed with you a little bit earlier. So the Frederick County Sheriff's Office participates in all of our threat assessments, again, to help us as a partner, to help us make good decisions, and to address all those needs that we have. I do want to make note that this is about the same number of threats that we saw at this time last year. However, some of the threats have, they vary. It's different kinds of threats, but from a number standpoint, it's about the same number. Our recommendation here, respectfully, is we just ask you that you could somehow include or work with your colleagues to include school resource officers in the state code for allocated dollars. We've seen the benefit. Our community has seen the benefit. Again, some of those grant dollars are drying up, so we could really use that. And then also we ask about specific dollars allocated to the local school divisions just to support safety in our schools. Because as we learn more about how to make sure places are safe, it requires something that's a little bit different. And each one of those different things costs money. So we just want to make sure that we're prepared to deliver that, because safety is not something you can afford not to do. So I want to stop there for a minute and see if you all had any questions. Dr. Hummer, ask you if you want to say some additional things.
I do. If you can go back to the previous slide here, I want to talk about this slide here a little bit, because I know what's going in some of your heads right now is looking at the 52 of no identified threat. And there's probably questions as to, okay, of those 72, why did we conduct those 52 threats? So the number one thing that increases the level of safety in our schools is time. Time. If you look at all of the history of school shootings, and if you look at the history of horrible things that have happened, what do you hear? Somebody didn't close a door. Somebody didn't talk to a student. Somebody didn't complete a threat assessment like they should have. Somebody didn't follow up with a guidance counselor when a parent called and said that there was a threat that was reported. And that is the last thing that I ever want to experience. As Mr. Goodwin was just mentioning, we have an amazing community, and this is the last thing that we want to have to work through and deal with. So with these threats, We have to look into them, and they take time. They take an average of 2 to 3 hours to review information, to look into information, to make sure that our student, staff, and community is safe. And in order to get through these items, that time, we need resources, we need people so that we're able to look into these things. And as we keep saying with the theme of today, is we are a growing community, we're an amazing community, but we are growing. And when we grow, we increase that risk. And we want to be able to grow our resources in proportionate with the way that we are growing. And that is the only way that we will keep up with this, because what we don't want to have happen is we didn't have time for one of those 52, and then one of those turned into a serious situation. So with that, Mr. Goodwin, I just wanted to add that layer there, because that is what we need to stay in on top of, and that's what we need to make sure that we understand the logistics of this, because it is important that we went through those 52 to make sure there wasn't a threat. So I just wanted to add that layer there. Thank you, Mr. Goodwin.
Thank you, Dr. Hummer.
Mr. Goodwin, if I may, I'm sorry. Dr. Hummer, I was curious, how many staff members do you actually need for a threat assessment for those 2.5 hours?
Oh, wow. That's, I would say, about 5 to 10 people. I mean, we have the administrators, we have a school psychologist, we have a counselor. Sometimes we have Mr. Conlin or his team. We have our student services support. So I would say about 5 to 10 people per. So to your point, it takes up a lot of time. So back to the, I don't know if you were getting to this, so I'm sorry to steal your thunder. So back to the student support positions, that's pulling them away from their day-to-day duties, because those 3 to 100, a lot of times they are part of that process.
Thank you, Thor.
So when we came up with this idea, this is something that I brought up with unanimous support from my colleagues here on the board. This isn't Mayberry anymore. You know, I used to go turkey hunting in the morning, and I'd be able to carry my shotgun in my truck, leave it, you know, go to school, have it in the back of the truck, and be fine. Lock the doors because I didn't want to get my shotgun stolen. Now we have stuff all the way from Columbine to Uvalde. We see, you know, especially with something like Uvalde, you know, people weren't in the building. You know, we didn't have that SRO there. So you look across the nation at these different threats, these school shootings and stuff, and it's not only at local levels, state levels, but we seen it last night in the vice presidential debate. J.D. Vance brought it up about having those officers and threat assessment teams and different weapons detection systems. Any kind of tool that we can have to keep these children safe is a win, not only for our staff, our parents, the people in the Commonwealth, but definitely our students. This would be a slam dunk. I think that we could get bipartisan support at the Commonwealth level, you know, because everybody wants to keep their students safe. We're already funding this at the local level, but if we got those state dollars to do this, it takes it away from our locality, decreasing the tax burden from the locality, and it also guarantees that those 4 spots will never go vacant. It could also provide something like standardized training for all of our SROs across the board. Instead of having Shenandoah County, Warren County, Clark County, Frederick County, all doing something a little bit different, we can cross-train with each other. This is something that our law enforcement professionals, you know, would desperately want and need, especially if they're providing the staff to protect our most valuable assets in the community, our children. So with your support, I would love to see this go forward. I think, you know, I don't think anybody would probably vote against this on your different floors. So with that, thank you for your time on this. And if there's any questions, Mr. Goodwin, Dr. Hummer, myself, any of the board members here would be happy to talk to you further on this. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to hand this back over to Dr. Hummer. While I do that, I want to thank Dr. Hummer for the opportunity to spend time with you tonight, and thank each one of you for the many ways you make not only this community, but every community a better place. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, to close out, I want to take a very needed moment to Give a round of applause for my team for all of what they've done and worked on. Thank you all so much. We spent a lot of time speaking through these legislative priorities, and we also spent a lot of time of making sure we were making intentional recommendations to you as we work together to do what's best for our students. I also want to share with you, I know a lot of you were looking through those. We created 2 pamphlets there in front of you. You could take those with you, please. The first one provides you a quick summary and outline of everything we presented to you this evening, so please take that with you. Share it with your General Assembly compadres. We'd appreciate that. Make them jealous that you guys are representing us, right? And then also we provided a statutory recommendation of what some of these recommendations would look like to the General Assembly, so kind of hopefully doing some of the work for you in regards to those recommendations. So again, I want to thank my team. I want to thank you all for your time. I do want to just spend a little bit of time. I know we went over because of all of our great conversations, but I know we keep talking about the COCA line, and we first and foremost totally understand all the constituents that come to you and what you represent for this amazing region of Virginia. So we appreciate you guys at least hearing us out and taking us into consideration. But as Dr. Erson kind of mentioned, we totally understand what you all are dealing with. We know that you're dealing with all these individuals that are coming for you in regards to making changes and adjustments. We just really appreciate the time that we're spending here and the collaboration, and like I said earlier, of learning from you. We want to be able to do that together. But one of the things that I would like to add about the COCA line, and we talked about this during when we were establishing these legislative priorities, and Mr. Wiley, you and I have had a conversation about this as well, is there has been a lot of conversation about adjusting the calc tool at the state level. And if you had paid attention to the JLARC study that just came out a couple years ago, we are one of very few states that do what's called a student needs-based funding formula that would essentially help fund the localities based on the needs of their students. And I think if that could happen, I think that would really help with all of these funding issues that we're speaking about, because it will actually fund us based on the needs of our students, and rather just everybody gets the same number of staff based on the number of kids you have. So we're actually the minority when it comes to that type of funding formula, and I know there's conversations about that. So what I would ask, if you do take that back and if there is any sort of momentum on that, is to please, please, please include the educators in those conversations. Please include the superintendents. Please include the school board members. Please include our team so that we can talk through what that's going to look like, because we can provide some really good information in regards to the day-to-day and help with these conversations of 72 threat assessments and why that 3 to 1,000 needs to be more. And when you look at the 1 to 258, it might look, oh, that sounds like a good number. Well, there's all these other responsibilities that they have that we'll be able to articulate. So that would be our ask in regards to that. If the COCA line can't change, definitely include us in the conversations of changing that calc tool, because we know that will really help us get what we need. So with that, I do want to thank you again. I want to open up to any other questions, of course, that you all have, as well as our school board, and then we'll go from there. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Hummer. This is not necessarily a question. I'm just going to kind of go through in terms of what we're seeing in the General Assembly. As I spoke with Dr. Hummer earlier, and certainly he's going to share this information with you, it's kind of some information I gathered from the appropriations staff, information from Virginia Association of Counties, and just kind of get some information. So anytime I go to a meeting, I try to get some intel before I come in there and act like an idiot. Sometimes I act like an idiot regardless, but that being said, I do try to get some information so that at least we can kind of talk on the same page of music. So there was to his point about JLARC, JLARC has recommended a joint subcommittee between the House and the Senate to talk about every point, every matter that you brought in front of us today is what is in their lap. They just had their first meeting this past Monday, and all your pointed needs, if you will, are in that discussion. So as I was talking about Dr. Hummer, in terms of, we call it how to make the sausage in Richmond, there's a process in terms of the policy we put in play, the money asks, and how we go about doing business on a daily basis down there. And, when I got there, and I'm certainly, my colleagues here can say the same, nobody knows how to do it until you get in the mud and fight through it, right? So, kind of learning through the process, I've kind of, figured out some of the things, and I'm still learning, which is one of the great things about being a member of the House. Speaking to the COCA, right now we're kind of in this dichotomy, right? It's the urban versus the rural. The urban being the other side of the fence from the Republicans in the rural. So when we come to them and we say, hey, we want you to share your purse, they're going to look at us and say, we're in the majority. We don't need to share the purse at all. So that's one thing. But that's going to be part of the joint subcommittee. And moving forward, eliminating support position caps, that's a big one that they're looking at. It's in that subcommittee. Student opportunities still needs to be vetted through subcommittee. The building and maintenance school facilities, we had monies that came through the casino allocation back in 2022. If you guys recall, maybe do, maybe don't. It was about these really rural areas, more rural than this area. I mean, we're speaking far southwestern Virginia areas where literally the roofs were leaking and the kids were in really bad areas, or excuse me, parts of the building where they shouldn't be learning. So that money went there. When you get those kind of allocations, those are I don't know what the word is, but we typically don't see allocations like that when we go through budgeting through our biannual budget. It's just rare that we see it. We saw it also on I-64 for their widening. We rarely see that. And that's typically done through the other side, or whoever side has the majority, especially with having the governor at the end. I don't mean to waste your time. I just kind of want to go through this, and then I'm going to brief you guys in terms of some strategy.
Please, Mr. Wiley, this is not a waste of time. We really appreciate this. Thank you.
The resource officers, your grant, right? Was it federal? Does anybody know? Federal. Okay, the federal are notorious for this. I remember when I was on city council in Winchester, and we had preschool. Great program. It's still going, right? Well, guess who inherited it? The state. Are we giving it up? No. Actually, we put money into it this past session, did we not? Yes, we think it's very important. We wanted to continue that. But the reality of it is this. The federal, when they allocate the monies, they do have strings attached. And they say, we want you to do it this way, right? A lot of things we don't like, but we like the intent, the idea, and the execution of what it's trying to accomplish. Unfortunately, the state is going to end up trying to figure out how to make this happen. Unfortunately, I have a feeling it's going to end up being a match. We're going to have to figure out a way for the state and the localities to share it. Otherwise, it's going to be, what do we call it, the nasty word, the unfunded mandate, okay? So we look bad, and we tell our people we don't want to do unfunded mandates to our citizens because why? Because they got to carry the weight, right? And just a couple other things. The proffer point. I had discussions with some folks on the Super Board of Supervisors. Currently, the way the proffer situation is done, and you're right, it's not real time. So 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when they proffered it, it was to that real time money. Well, we travel fast forward 25 years, cost of inflation, everything, cost of lumber, cost of whatever, labor, it's 30% more, whatever more, right? So it's not real time. We want to make it real time. That's a consideration. The problem now we have is the dichotomy of affordable housing. We need to get affordable housing because we don't have it. We don't have it. I mean, we're so far behind in housing on that level. It's crazy. But how do you fund it? Well, the proffers, if you make them proffer it, those numbers don't work. So we have to figure out creative ways to make that happen. And the Virginia Association of Counties, they want to kind of put the brakes on that. I think they're going to put it through a study or some type of analysis to make that work in an effective way through the proffer system. I think there's another way that we're looking at is an infrastructure needs-based program through the proffer system. They do that in certain localities, and that's one thing we're looking at. The last part about threats, we did have a swatting bill, and I think that got through. That's the threat, when it's just a prank call, you threat, and then, so we had consequences. Where we are now, I don't think there's still enough teeth in it, and I think the public safety side's going to come back with that for some more policy tweaks. So backing up, if you listen to me about joint subcommittee, and if that committee is the one that's really making the decisions, where should you be talking, or where should you be putting your efforts? You should be at their back door, calling their aide, making meetings with them off session constantly. They should know your name, your kids' names, everything. And I can't stress that enough. I'm not on that committee of education, but if I was, you should be driving me nuts. That's the first thing. When it comes to subcommittee for appropriations for education, specifically secondary, elementary, middle school, I'd be talking to that subcommittee. I'm not on that committee, but I would be talking to those folks. If it makes it to the next committee, you should be talking to me. I'm in full committee, of course, if it makes it there. And it will make it there to one form or fashion, but it'll make it there. But the encouragement of talking to those people, And the other thing is conferring or communicating and being on the same page of music with your associations, your lobbying firm. So you have VSBA, I'm assuming is the group that you work with. They're going to be doing the same thing. But I can't encourage you to say it more importantly, and I think my colleagues would say the same, when you're testifying in front of these committees in front of committee, it speaks volumes. When you write me an email or send me a text or a phone call, it does, but it really doesn't have a lot of meat to it until I see somebody from my neck of the woods that's speaking at me in committee saying, hey, we really need this. That speaks volumes. I think I'm almost done, but I appreciate you having this. I don't think that in my time, granted it's only been 5 years, I don't think I've ever done this before with your school board, so this is good. And I really encourage you to continue that. Please don't come to us in December 31st and ask for something. Please get this to us now, what you're doing. I encourage you to get it to us early and often and start talking to us early and often, and the ones that are making the decisions in Richmond early and often. Anything I missed, anything? So thank you. And anytime you guys need to get a hold of us, our job is to communicate and be readily available to help you out. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Bill did it so well, I really don't have much to say, but I just want to go back to the COCA line and make sure that I wasn't misunderstood, that I'm advocating for one county, even though you all know that's where I live. You have to understand that when we're in Richmond, when we get into committees, when we work with these things, we're standing up at the side of the room before the committee. We go, when someone goes out, to get their ear, to be able to work. You're not going to get anything through with the three of us by ourselves. You just can't. We have to have a bigger organization. We have to have a bigger ask than just the three of us. We can't do it. So working with your other counties from your region, okay, making your ask bigger gets us places. You know, there has to be something that you and Clark County are working on. Well, if that's the case, Clark County and Loudoun County can be working on something. The next thing you know, when we get together as a region and say, you know, this is where we are here in this region, we have power in numbers. And, you know, the whole partisan, bipartisan thing, it's 19 to 21 when you get to that floor, but there's not a committee that's not even more partisan than that. Okay? It's the way it is. And it's not going to change till next year.
Well, no, Senate.
It's 4 years, you know. But those are the things, when I said about that is, no individual legislator is going to get much done down there till you have tenure of some of these people that have followers. And unfortunately, y'all got some new ones. We're doing the best we can. I know for a fact the two to my side are very well respected. I hear a lot of good things about them. And I get to see Bill moving around more. He moves faster than Dolores does. I mean, but he just had a hip brace. But no, those are the kind of things, like I said, please don't take what I said about that COCA line and where we are. Take that as an example that's what you're going to run up to anywhere you're working with something like that, all the way around here. You know, Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, all those counties, they're just going to say, wait a minute. You know, it's not just our ass. It's this whole region's ass.
Thank you, Mr. French. We appreciate that. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you very much for coming. Please take some refreshments on the way out the door, and